Hello, this is lesson 10H, comparing populations, and you should have this handout. If you don't, you can find the handout on my PowerSchool website where you find my math videos. And we're going to start right away with the beginning where it says at the box, it asks, how can data be compared? So in this lesson, we're going to be comparing two box plots. Okay, and when you have a double box plot, you can see how the data is distributed using your 5 key numbers and how they compare to each other. So go ahead and write the number 5 in this answer blank. And when I talk about the 5 key numbers, I'm talking about we can compare their minimum values, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and then the maximum values. So you can compare those 5 key statistics with each other. So if we look at the first problem here, it talks about the cost of MP3 players in dollars. And the first question says, what is the median cost of each store? So just by looking at the box plot, remember the median is the line that goes inside that box. It's right inside here. It's not always exactly in the middle, but many times it looks like it's in the middle. So for electronics world, the median is this data value right here. And if you look straight down, that's at 70. And then for bargain basement, the median, again, is the line inside the box. Okay, if you look straight down, that median is 60. Go ahead and write those two numbers in the blanks. Okay, let's take a look at problem number 2, where it asks for the range of each store. So the range, remember, is the maximum minus the minimum value. So for electronics world, the maximum value is 100. That's this data value, that's 100. The minimum value here is at this point, which is 55. So we subtract the two and we get $45. So go ahead and write that on your line, and I'm going to box my answer. There we go. And now let's look at bargain basement. For bargain basement, we have the maximum value here is $80. The minimum is this point right here, that's 50. So then we subtract 80 minus 50 and we get $30. So let's go ahead and box that range. So that just tells us that the costs of, or the range of electronics world, they have a more varied, like their data's more spread out than that of bargain basement. Okay, now let's take a look at problem number 3. The question asks, are there more, less, or the same number of MP3 players, typo, at Electronics World that cost under $65 than over $75? So basically we're comparing the percent of players that cost under $65 to the percent of players that cost over $75. Okay, so let's look at electronics world. First, let's take a look at the percent of players that cost under $65. So here's 65 on the number line, and if I shoot it straight up, that's this point right here, the first quartile. So the number of MP3 players that are under $65 is going to be, or the percent is going to be 25%. Because the distance from the minimum to the first quartile represents 25% of the data values. Okay, so what we're going to do is I want you to label 25%. And remember, that's what the box and whisker plot does. It divides our data into percentiles. This is 25% of the data, and then from here to here is 25%, and then from here to here is 25%. And then from here to here is another 25% of the data. So now let's look at the cost of MP3 players that are over $75 at Electronics World. So here's 75. Okay, I'm going to shoot that one straight up, my little line, imaginary line. That's this point. So over 75 is going to be 25% of the data. So let's go ahead and write 25% above this whisker part. Okay, so then to answer our question for problem 3, there's going to be the same number of MP3 players that are under 65 as there are that are over 75. dollars. So we're going to write the word the same, or the words the same. Okay, so now let's take a look at problem number 4. What does a longer whisker tell you about the data? So looking at, again, electronics world, this whisker here is longer than this one. And it doesn't mean that there are more MP3 players that cost within this range than there are that cost within this range. That's not what the box and whisker tells us. In fact, there's about the same amount of MP3 players. But the whisker, the longer whisker, just means that the cost of those MP3 players that are over $75, that they're more spread out. The prices are further apart from each other on a number line. So I want you to pause the video so that you can write this sentence and press play when you're ready to continue. Please pause now. Okay, problem number 5 for this box and whisker plot. It asks, in general, which store has more expensive MP3 players? Explain your reasoning. So when you're looking at the box and whisker plot, you can already see that when we're looking at the box part, that's our middle 50%. So even like the middle 50% of our MP3 players are greater than those of Bargain Basement. So the middle 50 is to the right of Bargain Basement's box. And then you'll notice that this whisker surpasses that whisker here. But that just tells us there's a more expensive MP3 player at Electronics World. We don't know if that's just one MP3 player and the others, are over in this range. We're not sure. But what we can tell is our middle 50% is to the right of this Bargain Basement. Okay, so what I want you to write is EW, which stands for Electronics World, because the middle 50%, which is the box, is to the right of BB, which is Bargain Basement. Pause the video to do so, and when you're ready to continue, press play. Please pause now. Okay, so now let's take a look at problems 6, 7, and 8. For the first problem 6, which refers to this box plot, it asks for which team has a greater range. And here we have height in inches of Cleveland Cavaliers and LA Clippers. So remember, to find the range, it's the maximum minus the minimum. So looking at the Cleveland Cavaliers, we have 83, which is our maximum value, and 76, which is our minimum. So the range is 7 inches. Now let's look at LA Clippers. And so here for the LA Clippers, it's 85 minus 77. So then the range is 8 inches. So right now is a good time for your secret code word. And since we're talking about height in inches of NBA players, what I need for you to do is to write your height. If you know your height in inches, write that right here. Or you can estimate your height in inches. So please write that down right next to this double box plot. Okay, so now if we're looking at the interquartile range, which is the middle 50% of the players, for the Cleveland Cavaliers, that's basically here the third quartile minus the first quartile. So here that's going to be 80 and a minus, and this one we're going to say is about 78. So that's 2 inches. And then for the LA Clippers, we have 81. And this sort of looks like it's 78, but notice that it's a little bit lower than the first quartile of the Cleveland Cavaliers. So let's call this 77.5. So the interquartile range is 81 minus 77.5, and that equals 3.5 inches. And the last question, number 8. Which team has the shortest member? What is his height? So looking at the two box and whisker plots, we can see the lowest whisker, the lower whisker is on the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that minimum value is at 76. So we're going to say Cleveland Cavaliers and 76 inches. So I'm going to abbreviate and mark that 76 inches. And that is all for your notes. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.